Welcome to my best movies of the year list, and also concurrently my worst of the year list, in a style that might seem familiar to some other internet critics. However, as I want to end on a positive note, I'll be starting with a bad movie first. I'll also be swearing a lot less. I obviously have not made reviews of everything I'm covering here, that would give me only 7 movies to talk about, but I did watch everything on this list for the first time in 2022. Not everything is from 2022, though more than half this time around is, because I'll watch old movies too, and sometimes they're very good. Heck, sometimes I'll even watch those old movies in a theater, while I watch new releases like on my phone, or in other not-so-great settings like on an airplane. 6 of these following 10 released this year, and 4 of the 10 I saw in a theater. Anywho, let's get to it. 5th worst, Morbius. First up is the best meme of the year, Morbius. We the people gaslit a studio into re-releasing an utter failure of a movie just so it could fail twice. That being said, Morbius is only number 5 because it's not that bad. It's certainly not good, that's for sure, but it's just incredibly unmemorable and generic, which is what made it such a great meme target. He never says, "It's Morbid time," so we substitute our own reality where he totally morbs the bad guys, because that's just much more entertaining. 5th best, Top Gun Maverick. It's a good action movie. After watching the original Top Gun and seeing how vastly it improved over the original, I dare to even say it's a great action movie. However, it is the only movie on this list that I didn't at some point consider my favorite of the year. But it still greatly exceeded my expectations and lived up to the hype. Not bad for a movie I only went to see because my power was out. The best part of Maverick is that it explains the final mission less than 15 minutes in, and the rest of the movie is basically build up to it. So that by the time the finale comes around, no one has to explain what's going on to suck the momentum out of the scene. The last 20 minutes of the movie are truly fantastic. 4th worst. Hey, are you familiar with the comic strip Blondie? You know, Blondie, Dagwood, Daisy Dog. Well, they made a movie based on it. Or rather, they made 28 of them, starting in 1938. And while I certainly did not watch them all, the first was so bad I don't want to see the rest. While it maintains some aspects of the comic strip, it's mostly an awful cliched plot featuring Blondie suspecting Dagwood is seeing another woman. Reading the plot synopses of the sequels, this seems to be a recurring plot device in many of the movies. What's egregiously bad is not that, but such ideas as Blondie deciding to spend a large amount of money buying new furniture as an anniversary present to herself. Or their child, who they show no affection towards and only call Baby Dumpling, being a generally awful kid and running away from home off. Also, he hits a neighbor kid with a brick. It's played for laughs. Yes, a lot of this movie is a product of its era, but there were many good movies in the 30s and 40s. This was not one of them. If for some reason you want to watch this, maybe just jump straight to Blondie Goes Latin, which sounds a bit funnier at least. Wikipedia says it features Dagwood cross-dressing to play drums in a band instead of completing a work assignment, and apparently has several musical scenes. 4th best, Pompo the Cinephile. Pompo is a movie I loved, and that most people probably aren't even aware of, much less put on any best-of lists. It's an anime movie that even anime fans didn't seem to have much to say about, but it hit all the right notes for me. For starters, I generally like movies about making movies, and I am especially interested in animation about making movies, because they often have very interesting presentation. For example, look at the immaculate Millennium Actress, a fantastic dream state of a film. Pompo's slightly less unique take is to just take the extreme earnestness and exaggeration of anime and apply it to a film crew. The characters are unhealthily obsessed with specific aspects of the movie they're producing, and yet unlike certain films, this isn't really romanticized either. Sometimes creatives give up more than they really should to meet a deadline to their own satisfaction. More importantly, the medium of animation makes everything pop. Striking a pose is static electricity in the air. Dramatic line delivery is a wave of wind blowing back your hair. The main cast look like ageless anime blobs next to their realistically proportioned supporting characters. And those characters all emote like you just gave a desperate artist 5 seconds to show their entire range of talent. It's great. My only complaint is that the movie calls its version of Hollywood Nyollywood, which sounds incredibly stupid. 3rd worst,
24 by 36, a movie about movie posters.
That's right, there's space for documentaries on this list too. For about the first 20 minutes, this is a rather uninteresting film about movie posters. It would be okay as a video essay. However, it then takes a turn to be almost exclusively about the company Mondo, who makes official alternate posters for existing movies to sell to fans, and feels like watching an hour-long advertisement. If you really, really liked this specific company's artwork, you might enjoy this. I mean, as a kid, I repeatedly watched videos about Lionel trains that were basically just advertising the products and glorifying the company, but at least toy trains move. 24 by 36 felt like a cynical bait and switch, pretending to be about something that's interesting, and then abandoning it. I would have rather listened to just complaints about how current movie posters only care about showing actors' faces and all look the same for an hour, because at least that would have felt like it had passion behind it. Third best, Buddha's Palm. This movie is fun. Everything on this list is of course biased opinions, but this is the most biased. I don't know if it was just a good palate cleanser after watching a far more serious movie, or just the people I watched it with, but Buddha's Palm was the most fun I had watching a movie this year. The pace is breathless, the action is ridiculous, and the plot is actually fairly solid for being a stupid magical martial arts movie. It's got twist upon twist, but it actually does plant information to foreshadow its turns, and doesn't leave all that many loose ends. Plot cul-de-sacs, on the other hand? Of course it has those, but they're still entertaining. In one scene, two characters show up at an enemy clan and accuse the clan of an assassination that just happened. There's a big fight, and then a third guy comes in and says, "Sorry, they actually weren't involved," so they all leave. If Buddha's Palm were more serious, this would be infuriating, but it's just part of a fun, wild ride. Second worst, Belle. This is not the second worst movie I saw this year. It's not even close. There's other garbage that could have been here, but after reflecting on it for months, Belle really just still rubs me the wrong way, in a way nothing else recently has. I could have made an hours-long review of nitpicks of this movie. Instead, I settled for 25 minutes. I don't often have a burning desire to complain, but every time I've seen this movie referenced in the last year, it's made me a little upset or angry. Usually one becomes less judgmental of something over time, but I think I have a lower opinion of Belle now than I did 10 months ago. If you're one of the people who's told me that Hosoda's other movies are better, thank you. I'll get around to seeing them eventually. But wow, this movie just was not it. Second best, Jojo Raps. Here's a film that falls in an awkward area. It's quite recent, but I didn't see it on release, so it feels weird in a best of 2022 list. It's also in a weird spot because it's about a kid who has Hitler as his imaginary friend. Well, if you're going to make a comedy featuring Hitler, you may as well play the man yourself. So suffice it to say, I'm very interested to see what non-Marvel movie Taika Waititi makes next. Oh yeah, the actual movie. It's about a boy in Nazi Germany finding out that things aren't going as great as he's been led to believe, and Jews are not literal monsters, and Hitler is not actually his friend. I'm not going to say this movie isn't serious or depressing at times, but it's also a lot funnier than you probably would think it is from that description. The worst.
Moonfall.
From one of the first movies I saw in 2022 to one of the last. I was all set to have Belle as my worst movie of the year, but this movie is just so mind-numbingly bad that nothing else compares. While Morbius was generic and uninspired, Moonfall is the Room of disaster movies. That is not a compliment saying Moonfall is so bad it's good. Rather, like The Room, it was too long with occasional scenes that are hilarious, but I cannot recommend it because the rest of the movie is absolutely worthless. In the entire first hour of the movie, there's a total of 2 good scenes, surrounded by some of the worst dialogue and characters I have ever seen. Some people, like my coworker or Moist Critical, think that this is a very fun movie to watch. I disagree. It does everything wrong, but I hated most of the experience instead of laughing at it. Do not watch this, you will regret it. The best. Everything Everywhere All at Once. So from my least liked to my absolute favorite. It's hard to overstate how much Everything Everywhere All at Once tops this list by. For 2 of the previous films on this list, I watched them and immediately thought they might be my film of the year. But when I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, I went out and told people that it was my favorite movie of the year. I haven't proselytized for a movie this much since Your Name. Speaking of which, watch it, it's really good. The only hang-up I have in recommending this is trying not to spoil a lot of cool things about it. This movie is going to be on a lot of best-of lists. Even after hearing a ton of hype, it still exceeded my expectations. Watch this movie. And here at the end, I guess I'll throw in a few honorable or dishonorable mentions. First, the bad.
Bubble.
This was an utterly worthless and disappointing anime movie released directly to Netflix. The difference between it and the movies that actually made the list was that I had no expectations of it being good. It seemed like a train wreck waiting to happen. I already reviewed this one, watch that if you care.
Hercules in New York.
1969. Now this is almost so bad it's good, but there's a lot of scenes that are just boring, dragging it down. What this movie is notable for, though, is the first starring role for Arnold Schwarzenegger, well before he was an A-list action star, even before he was a star bodybuilder. And just like everything else he's in, Arnold at least is entertaining to watch. And now the good. Avatar. I saw this for the first time this year, in 3D, in a theater. It's quite good, but was bumped off my list pretty much by personal bias since I just made a full video review of this and it wasn't like the absolute best thing I saw. Pretending I'm a Superman. The Tony Hawk video game story. I put a documentary on my worst list, so it's only fair to highlight a good one as well. This was a very interesting topic to me, even though I'd never played the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games before this year. I would definitely recommend this doc if it sounds even mildly interesting. And yes, it talks about the iconic soundtrack as well. I mean, it's in the title. Thanks for watching this list. Hopefully it was a bit more to the point and entertaining than previous years. Bye.